Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Mopsuit Musings. And today we have a very special guest. He's an entrepreneur, a professional wrestler who worked for organizations like the WWE. He's a nutritionist and a personal trainer and coach. He has some profound and successful ways of bringing people into condition and the best shape of their life. Please welcome and enjoy Zack Harris. All right, Zach. Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man? Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's been a minute. It's been like what, say over 10 years since we caught up last time.
Yeah, well over. Yeah, I think it's probably '06. Yeah, '06 the last time you and I actually worked out together in the gym.
That's kind of how we initially connected with training and everything like that. And now since I've seen you, 10 years past, you look like you've really shaped up because.
Thank
You look like you dropped some weight too, and kind of, put on some muscle. What did you just continue training after that? I mean, it's been a long time. I'm sure you did, but.
Yeah, I mean, 17 years old, that was the time that I really first started to dabble in the gym world, and you were actually one of the main factors that really introduced me to how to properly train and help me kind of lay a foundation for trying to figure out what I was doing, right? I was always fascinated by the gym. As a kid, I was a big WWE fan. Triple H is like my hero, my role model, right? And I always saw him, and I'm like, I want to look like that when I grew up. So by the time I hit about 14 or 15, I started playing around in the gym, dabbling in the gym, experimenting, trying to figure out how do I do a curl, how do I bench press. It's not as easy as it looks when you actually try to mechanically lay these things down. And that was about the time I met you, after about a year and a half of just trying to figure it out. And you kind of really helped introduce me how to properly train. You introduced me to recovery. You introduced me to the body part split. I think you were the first person to ever even explain to me, you do chest and back on this day. This, quads, hamstrings.
So that's interesting because, it's kind of like you kind of passed that information down because obviously, I didn't make any of this stuff up. So it's like somebody, had to kind of bring that information to me, and then I brought it to somebody else, and, I'm sure, you're doing the same. So you started continuing training, and I know you kind of got into, some of the wrestling. So how did that happen?
Well, wrestling was another one of those things that I always wanted to do from the age of 9. I remember the very first time I watched a wrestling show. I was sitting in an apartment in Atlanta, Georgia, 9 years old. I saw Bill Goldberg on TV, and I just thought, oh my God, this is like larger than life. This is what I want to do when I grow up. And
so, but at this point, did you still think it was like? So here's the other thing. Since I'm not in that world, I don't want to say anything that would be offensive.
Right.
It's referred to as fake wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's did you know that it was at that time that it was like acting as opposed to,
Not at that time. No. Yeah. I'm like, oh God, this is as real as it gets.
Getting hit with chairs.
Oh man, in entertainment, acting, pro wrestling, they talk about suspending disbelief. Making you. That it's choreographed, it's scripted, but the idea is to get caught up in the moment and for that time just forget that.
Yeah, it's so good that doesn't matter that it's.
Yeah, well, my disbelief was suspended for about 2 years, right? Eventually I'm like, it's really strange. This person's getting hit in the head 10 times.
And they're still okay. No trauma to the head at all.
Right. But that, when I finally did figure it out, it's not like it diluted the dream for me.
Sure.
If anything, it made it. It sparked it even more because I've never been like a violent guy. I've never been into fighting, right? I've been a born entertainer is what I like to consider myself. Okay. So, always wanted to do it as a kid, hit my teens, right around the time I met you actually, where I kind of halfway fell out of love with the idea because I thought that's cool, but where am I going to find a school to train me? Where am I going to find, I tried to research it online, right? Wrestling Academy, I would type it in, and I'd see all these places where you would need to commit a $3,000 down payment and travel to Canada or different parts of the country, different parts of the world.
Right.
I'm like a miner that just got a job at Taco Bell. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have the money for this.
Right,
It's not
right.
realistic for me at this time. So that kind of went on the back burner for a few years until I'd say in 2010, I was introduced to this independent wrestling show that used to run on Fridays and Saturdays in Nashville at the Stadium Inn, the hotel. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I'm familiar with it.
Right. So it was called USWO, and it was run by a gentleman by the name of Tony Falk. And Tony Falk is a guy that's helped a lot of major stars. He's kind of like one of the unsung heroes of professional wrestling. He's helped groom guys like The Rock, Kurt Angle. He helped Jeff Jarrett.
So
way
this
back
is some
in the
big
day.
names, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before they were stars, Tony Falk
Right.
was one of the guys that
To
kind
of bring them up.
Mhm. Yeah, Mark Henry, that's another
Mhm.
one. He's
Yeah.
worked with a lot of stars in the past. And his son, LT, little Tony Falk, he phenomenal worker, phenomenal professional wrestler, just a real, another born entertainer. I met him through these shows. It was like a father and son promotion. And LT took me under his wing. I trained with LT, and that was how I got into the business. That was LT was responsible for helping me have my first match at the Stadium Inn in July of 2012.
So when you say training, how do you train for something like wrestling, like the type of wrestling that you were doing?
So that was another one of those real like face your fear moments for me. My first ever professional wrestling training session. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was at the Stadium Inn around 3 p.m. during a weekday. I met with LT and a few other trainees in the ring. It was set up, and the first thing he had us do was a front roll. So everybody's rolling, and I'm thinking, I am not a natural born athlete, right? I mean, I've gotten much more athletic over the last 10 years.
Like a front roll could break your neck.
Yeah,
or something
for
like
sure.
That. Yeah.
Like a front roll scared the crap out of me at that point in time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do this. Is like the initial stages of training to be a professional wrestler. It's more like training to be like an acrobat. Like we're talking front rolls, back rolls, flips, handstands, all of these things. I'm like,
So how do they teach you to do a flip? If you've never done a flip, how do you?
A lot of patience.
Okay. Does somebody assist you? Kind of like gymnastics? Where
Yeah, exactly. It's basic gymnastics. It's
Okay.
exactly what you could call
Okay.
it. Just the foundation of the moves. If you ever watch a match, you really know what to look for, and you're paying attention, you'll be able to dissect this. And this person is kind of helping the other guy.
Right.
So that was something that I was a super fan, but there's a difference between being a fan and knowing how to do it, right?
Yeah.
I thought I knew a lot about wrestling when I went into that first training session, but I was shown very quickly that I didn't really have much of a clue. So it was a little discouraging, and I actually I didn't think I could do it. So I had that one initial training session. I almost broke my neck about 12 times. I didn't show up
That's
back
scary.
up. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, not literally, but I mean, I was just so terrified.
Enough,
Yeah. I was scared, man. Yeah, I mean, scared enough to, potentially give up on it. But
So you were questioning it.
I was
time.
questioning it.
Yeah.
I was questioning myself. I'm like, I'm not a gymnast. I can't do this. And LT, he would text and text and text. You coming back to training? You coming back to training? Let's go. Let's train. And I guess he just believed in me. He believed in me, and he took his time with me. And he's not the only one. A lot of other great guys from that promotion and other promotions just in the Middle Tennessee area really took the time to be patient with me, took me under their wing, showed me the right way to do things. And a lot of it was trial by fire, but I did go back. I did continue to train.
You kind of need like a coach like that, or because in all athletes seem to have run into a coach early on that really kind of groomed them, to kind of groom their talents and groom their potential to where they, it helped them to move forward. Even if they didn't have that coach, who knows, if that individual would become is famous. We can look at like some famous ones. Like you mentioned, The Rock. I mean, look at him now. I was just looking at his Instagram. I mean, how about someone who was so able to transition into like mainstream entertainment, so well. I mean, he's one of the best, actors right now on the scene, and he came from, strictly from wrestling. So,
well, and it goes back to just having that intangible, just that it factor. Wrestling is really good at teaching you how to be in my opinion, a fine theater actor, because it's all live. I guess on Monday Night Raw, you've got a television script that you read at this point, but on the independent scene, a lot of it is, hey, just go out, tell this story, here's the bullet points that we need to hit, and don't screw it up, right? So if something goes wrong in the middle of that, then it's really up to you to call the audible and make it right there. And they're only gonna know that you've screwed something up if you allow them to know, if you allow the crowd to know. If you're gonna mess up loud,
right?
Like you're meant to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that The Rock's years in professional wrestling probably really helped contribute to his success in Hollywood, because it groomed him to be just that innate entertainer that he is. But it also comes back to just being born with it or not. There are a ton.
He's very charismatic, and that,
yeah, you can't teach that.
No,
you can't teach charisma.
Yeah.
You can teach timing. You can teach a lot of things, but The Rock is just oozes charisma, and that's something that.
It's interesting how he made such a big switch, because he was wrestling and he went into acting, and now he's almost to the point of like a motivational speaker, motivational person. So a lot of people that normally would not have followed him, follow him because of like he motivates them to, whether it's at the gym or life in general. But
well, he's one of those guys that has really broken through to the next level, on the level of like a maybe even beyond that, of like a Hulk Hogan, but definitely in that same realm.
For sure.
Guys that, like, even if you don't watch wrestling, my mom, she can't stand wrestling, never watches wrestling. But she knows that, that's a thing Hulk Hogan does.
Right.
That's the level guys like John Cena have gotten to. Everybody knows who John Cena is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cena, The Rock, Hogan. There's Stone Cold to some degree, maybe not quite as much.
Not in the movie scene, but in wrestling, people knew about Stone Cold. They never watched wrestling.
Yeah.
So
any time between like 1998 and 2003, like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing an Austin 316 shirt.
Yeah,
somewhere.
It's interesting. I was actually I was watching something on him, and he was explaining how that kind of character came about that he made.
Yeah.
And so when I was watching that documentary, he was saying that he was having such a hard time kind of getting himself to be a successful wrestler before he created that character. And I can't remember how it came about or how he said he made, but once he kind of created that character and came about doing that, it flourished so fast, So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well, as far as the Austin 316 thing goes, that goes back to what I was just saying a moment ago about just, being a fine kind of theater actor that has the ability to kind of ad-lib and organically come up with something entertaining that's going to spark the people. I remember the first time he ever coined that phrase was 96. He won the King of the Ring, and it was against Jake the Snake. And Jake the Snake at the time, he had the gimmick going on where he was always quoting Bible verses and whatnot. And Austin said in his promo post-match, he said, you talk about thumping your Bible and your John 3:16, well, Austin 3:16, so they blew up. And it was just something he said just to say it, right?
Yeah.
And the next night, Austin 3:16 signs are all over the arena. And they're like, we should make a shirt, So the shirt comes out, best-selling wrestling shirt in history, as far as I know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything's ever sold
you would
more.
think it has to be, right? Because I don't know of any other wrestling shirt that would kind of.
Yeah, I have too.
So yeah. So back to, I guess, like, your progression. So LT takes you, under his wing, keeps you coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point do you get your first match? How does that, I guess my question is, how does that come about? Like, what process needs to happen for you to be able to get into that ring?
Right. So back in the day at the Stadium Inn, you had your A show and your B show. A show ran on Friday nights, and that was kind of the more seasoned, experienced talent. And then the Saturday show was, I guess, what they considered the B show, and that was the more up-and-coming young guys that are still developing their craft, still learning. They get a chance to get some exposure in front of a live crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first match was on the Saturday show, and I remember the day, I remember the year. It was July 28th, 2012. So the 7-year anniversary is actually coming up next month, almost a month from now. So it was my birthday weekend. I was about to turn 23, and I remember we had that date set for about a month in advance or so. I've been training. I've trained for a good, I'd say, 8 to 9 months, 2-3 times a week, learning how to bump, learning how to sell a move, learning the psychology of the business, learning the ins and outs, the things, the mechanics, the fundamentals of what you need to know to go out there and put together a half decent match without falling all over yourself. Those were things that I constantly got drilled in my head in preparation for this match. And on that day, July 28th, that was the first time that I got to put the tools that I had been taught to work in front of a live crowd. And when you go in front of a live crowd, I don't care how much training that you have gone through. I don't care how perfectly you can take a bump, how well you think you can perform a move or sell a move that's been done to you. The whole game changes when you have that factor of a live crowd screaming and reacting to you and hating you or loving you or being bored by you, which is the worst thing you could ever hope for,
So it's almost like to a degree like a comedian maybe of some sort. Like you have a crowd to work.
Yeah.
Obviously not in the humor aspect of it,
right.
but you have a crowd to work, and the last thing that you want is a crowd to be bored or not interested in what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So in wrestling, you've got the good guy and you've got the bad guy traditionally, the heel and the baby face, right? So the heel obviously being the villain, the evil doer, and the babyface being the knight in shining armor that's there
right.
to, vanquish the evil doer. And as the heel, it kind of flies, I guess, in the face of traditional logic. You come out and I love playing the heel, and I'll come out and my friends will be at these shows and say, no, they're booing you. I'm like, that's because I'm doing my job.
That's what you want. Yeah, that's what you want. You want them to hate you.
You want a reaction. If you come out and you're getting cheered, and you're high-fiving fans and kissing babies and shaking hands, and you're supposed to be this big, evil SOB, you're not doing your job right. The worst thing that can happen, what you don't want, is no reaction at all. If you're coming out there and you're trying to sell them something and they ain't buying it, and they're not responding at all, and you can hear a pin drop, that's not good.
Yeah. That makes sense. So who decides, at what point, do you decide who's going to be, the bad guy, who's going to be the good guy, who's going to win, who, all that? When does that get decided?
A lot of that has to do with whoever is running the promotion, whoever's in charge of the back. It's kind of like we're the actors, you've got your director, your producer. What does the producer need? What is the need? Do I need to play the bad guy? Do I need to play the good guy? You need me to win? You need me to lose? What makes the most sense for business?
Yeah.
So if you're a guy that, like a journeyman that's just coming through the town, this isn't your usual Friday night spot, and maybe they've got like the hometown hero that they're really trying to push to sell tickets to every Friday, and you're booked against him, it makes good business sense for him to get a good win over you, make his image look good, things along that line.
Sure.
But if you're going to be around for the long haul, maybe you get a win over him, come back, do business.
Right. So how big are these crowds? What are we talking here? These local shows?
Yeah, these local shows, man, I've wrestled for as few as 15 people. I wrestled for as many as 600-700.
Oh wow! So it can be that big of a difference.
They can be pretty big, like at the state fairgrounds. In the sports arena, that can get packed.
Yeah.
That's a big hotbed for professional wrestling.
Okay, so we you're in this. You're kind of making your way through the local shows, and at what point do you get the call, or how do you get to the point to get to the big league, so to speak?
Well, believe it or not, the WWE quite literally has an application page, like for a job. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised.
Like Kroger's.
Like what's your work experience? Can we get a resume and send a match?
Yeah.
I was shocked when the first time I saw that. So I filled it out. It was like recruit.wwe.com. I went there, made my profile, sent in a few sample matches, clips from YouTube, whatnot, a headshot, a full body shot, tried to make it look professional. I eventually got the call from the head of the kind of like the extra talent, the road talent, and I got asked to come in 2015 with a bunch of other guys, local guys around the Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama area, Southeast area in general. We, about 10 of us all went in and we did a few extra spots for the WWE. So as an extra, you could be doing anything from being a security guard on TV to perhaps wrestling at what they call a dark match before the show goes on the air.
When you say security guard, explain that a little bit. Like, what do you mean by security guard?
Well, when I say security guard, I don't mean literally a security guard. I mean like in the sense of you're a body standing there and you've got a shirt on that says security and you're part of the show. Right?
Okay, so you're not really a security guard. You just play one, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something that I got to do in 2016. In August of 2016, Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar were in the middle of a big feud.
Okay.
And, myself and about 8 other guys, we were part of a security team that was hired to keep them apart from each other.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that picture. I froze it on the network, took a few snapshots.
Awesome.
Like,
Yeah. No, for sure. Now he's a enormous man, Brock Lesnar.
That man
he's gigantic.
Massive.
Yeah,
his
that's
hands
a
are
big
the
guy.
size of my head.
Yeah, I from what I know, I mean, did he just recently retire? Do you know?
From wrestling, or?
That's a good question. I know they were courting him for the UFC at some point, and I know that's not happening.
I think he's done with the UFC at this point.
But is he still doing wrestling?
Yeah.
He's still involved.
He's still involved, but he's very much like what they call a part-timer,
Okay.
He's one of those like big ticket attractions.
I see. So he's not there like regularly anymore at this point.
No, they've actually turned that into part of the gimmick for him, right? The stars that he opposes, they make that like a bullet point in their promos. I'm here every week, entertaining week in and week out. You sit at home and you just collect your check.
Yeah.
So I mean, it works though.
It brings people in.
Yeah.
So and he's, if I'm not mistaken, he's married to. I guess it's her stage name is Sable. Yeah. And I don't know her real name, unfortunately, but they're still together. Right? She was a wrestler in her own right for a while back, and there was a falling out between her and the UFC. Her and at the time was WWF, right?
Yeah, there was some kind of fallout, and I'm not too sure on the details of it.
Right.
And I don't know that anybody 100% is,
Right. They kind of kept it under wraps for the most part. I don't think too many people know exactly what happened with that.
There's some kind of lawsuit, for sure. But I mean, I don't like to, try to expound too much on things like that unless I am, 100% certain of it. And I was about 8 at the time, so
so you didn't have much lawyer experience.
Wrestling's really bad about these dirt sheets that'll say, a source confirmed that XYZ sued YBZ, and you don't know. Some guy told you back in catering.
What about the change of the name WWF to WWE? Like, what brought that about? Do you know?
Yeah, that was something to do with the the World Wildlife Fund or Foundation, World Wildlife Foundation.
So they basically said that's our name and you can't like use it.
Yeah, it was more or less like I think it had something to do with the New York Stock Exchange, like the name on there, and someone can feel free to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I know that WWF at the time, they had to list themselves under WWFE on the market, right?
I see.
So as
Okay.
to avoid any confusion.
Sure.
And there was some kind of deal that they had to uphold where they wouldn't use the name WWF in a certain context, and I think that they broke that rule, and World Wildlife Foundation took them to court over it, and they ended up saying it's gonna be less hassle for us to change it to entertainment.
Do you think that changing that name hurt the business?
I think that no, I don't. Short answer, no. I didn't like it. I hated it at the time, but I know that Vince McMahon really has always considered that entity to be so much more than just like wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's always wanted it to be an entertainment business. He's always wanted to branch out into different fields of entertainment other than just professional wrestling. So I think that for Vince, like the name World Wrestling Entertainment was a great opportunity in his mind because it allowed to open up much more of a broad spectrum.
Yeah, to kind of create an umbrella where he where he can kind of do much more than just the wrestling aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they have WWE studios where they make movies.
Sure.
There's a ton of movies that they make with their own, homegrown talent. They'll have them star in these like straight to DVD movies. Some of them are really good. Some not so much, but some are great. The XFL, the football thing,
right?
They did that.
I mean, Vince is quite the businessman, and I mean, that's a very simple thing to say, seeing him now. But from my understanding and from the information that I gather over the years of people from old bodybuilders that I listen to, interviews and such, he was in that bodybuilding scene early on, and then kind of branched out to create this WWF, which several times either was bankrupt, was gonna be bankrupt, and then he pulled him. Somehow he was such a good businessman, whatever you want to call him, that he pulled him out and was able to create this huge huge entity, so to speak, that now is he has legs for days.
Well, it was his father's promotion originally. It used to be the WWF way back in the day.
Okay.
Vince Sr. passed away, passed it on to Vince Jr. and Vince he always had this vision, from what I understand, of making it so much more than just the typical down home Southern wrestling type deal. He really succeeded in attracting a global audience to this product, along with WCW. WCW, I think, was really the catalyst to make him. He had taken it to a new level before the WCW ever came around, but then the WCW came around and really threatened their business, threatened to completely.
And who was on WCW? Was that what wrestlers are we talking about here?
Well, so WCW was run by a guy by the name of Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff had the bankroll of Ted Turner, who is, money for days. So Bischoff was a young guy at the time, very ambitious, and he took control of this promotion, WCW, and he had carte blanche just to write checks. How much you want, you got it. And all these stars that Vince made over the years, the Randy Savages, the Hulk Hogans, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, guys like that, I mean, he's just signing them on for more money than Vince could pay them for less dates. And that's the thing. I mean, pro wrestling is a very tough life. It's
hard on your body.
Hard on your body. I mean, you're gone 250 days a year at least. Wrestling, there is no off season. The NFL, there's an off season. MMA fighters, you're fighting, once every now and then, and a lot of, there's training camps involved, of course, but pro wrestling, you're going out, abusing your body 4 or 5 days a week, and you get hurt, well, tape it up and keep going, or you're not getting a paycheck.
Right.
And that's how it works.
Yeah.
There's not like a 401k and a bunch
that's a harsh way of existing.
It is a very harsh way of existing, and it takes a special breed of human being to be able to survive and thrive in a business like that, especially back then. It was so much worse even back then,
right.
20 years ago. So you got a guy like Eric Bischoff handing these established stars way more money for way less dates because they didn't do as many house shows as the WWF did, like non-televised shows.
Sure.
So Vince was in trouble.
Yeah.
Stealing all the stars, and they introduced the NWO. You remember the
right? Yeah. That's very familiar. Yeah.
And that just was such a reflection of society at the time. That edginess, kind of like in the mid '90s.
Right.
And WWF is over there still kind of in the midst of the cartoony stuff, like more children-based audience, and the WCW was really threatening them at the time, and that was what kind of brought on the Attitude Era, the golden years of the WWF.
So, kind of like in a brief scenario, so what happened? How did WWF win? How did Vince beat him out?
WWF won because WCW laid some great groundwork with their strategy to overthrow the WWF, but they never followed up by creating any new stars. They just continued to rely on these guys that had already been around for 20 years. They weren't giving new talent any opportunity to thrive. And on the other side of the coin, you've got the WWF introducing young, fresh faces like Degeneration X, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, guys that are 10, 15, 20 years younger that are hungry, and they're aggressively going after, this status. It was just a different feel over in the WWF. Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind, guys like that. And just Vince knows the wrestling business, and he understands. He had his finger more on the pulse than WCW did. Eric Bischoff, it wasn't really his fault, but he had a lot of hands in the pot over at Turner Network, from what I understand.
That's always a problem, isn't it? Like with a lot of situations, when you're trying to get something accomplished, and then there's too many people trying to tell you what to do or how to do it. It always ends up stifling the business. That happens a lot with people that are like artists. That's often why they go independent, and they don't want to work for a label, is because once you kind of commit to it, you're kind of held kind of responsible, and then you allow these people to kind of influence your own work. So, once that happens, then it kind of changes everything. So
what actually ended up really putting the nail in the coffin for WCW is, without trying to get too thoroughly into it, is around like the year 2000, they were really floundering. I mean, just like a lot of really bad ideas coming through the pipe, and they were ready. Like Turner didn't want to be associated with it anymore. They did like a merger with AOL Time Warner. Time Warner didn't want anything to do with wrestling. So Eric Bischoff was ready to go out and buy the thing, and with an investment company called like Fusion Media, I think they were ready to buy it. They had the television spot still secured on Turner's network, but it was just going to be owned by somebody else, and they were ready to just completely revamp it from the ground up, and they would have had a fighting chance at that point in time. But at the last minute, right when the deal was about to be done, Turner or AOL Time Warner came back and said, you can have the rings, you can have the rights to the video library, you can have the contracts, but you can't have the TV slot. So no TV time.
No TV time. You can't do anything with that.
Yeah, it's worth like $50.
That's a carcass there. That's dead. That's dead.
And so that was, I mean, without getting too into the whole thing.
Right. I'm sure we could be here for hours just discussing this part of that entertainment industry.
Easily. So the end of the story is, Eric Bischoff and the investment group, they couldn't do it without the TV time. Vince McMahon swooped in and he bought the company at like a bargain basement price. I think he paid like $2 million for everything, which is pennies.
Almost nothing. Yeah, for him, almost nothing.
So and that was the end of the story. WCW is now all the rights and intellectual property is property of Vince McMahon.
I would be interested to know the relationship with Vince McMahon and the people that left him originally to go to WCW after he bought them back. Like,
Vince is a businessman. I mean, if there's money to be made, it doesn't matter what you've done to him in the past.
All about the money.
If there's an interest, for that personality to be back on TV, he's gonna do business
put them
with
on.
you.
Yeah. So back, this is a bit of a tangent. So you did security for that. What else did you do in the WWE? Anything else? Or
I was Druid Priest one time for like an Undertaker entrance.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty cool.
Okay.
We're in these suits, we're in like these cloaks, and we've got these big sticks with like the big torches.
Yeah.
And they're pouring the lighter fluid on there and lighting them up. And
so is this as you're walking out? Is this on the walkout or is this
right?
Okay.
So you come out like the lights go out, the Druids come out with the torches. It was actually Fastlane 2015. That's the pay-per-view that it was on.
Awesome.
WWE Fastlane 2015. We come out. There's about, I think, 5 of us on the left, 5 of us on the right, and we're holding up the torches. And in the middle, there's a casket being pushed down the center, and everybody thinks, oh my God, it's the return of the Undertaker. The Undertaker's music is playing. Everyone's getting hyped up, going crazy. Casket opens, and it's another guy by the name of Bray Wyatt, and he challenges the Undertaker for the next month at WrestleMania, and that was like the groundwork for their big match.
Gotcha. Now the Undertaker's actually from Tennessee, right? Is that correct or no?
I think he's from Texas.
Texas.
But
Okay, maybe I was wrong. Yeah,
he lived here for a long time.
That's what I'm thinking of, that he lived here, because I remember some people were even seeing him around.
In Bellevue, I think.
Yeah.
Like
so. And you mentioned Triple H on one point. That's, you could go the route of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, or you could go the route of Triple H and just marry into the family, right?
Yeah, well, Triple H, first and foremost, I mean, he is the consummate wrestling just enthusiast, and not to say The Rock isn't. The Rock was born into the business. He's a third generation superstar. His grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, his father, Rocky Johnson, and then The Rock. The Rock, his first dream was football, and he due to an injury he couldn't continue on in football. No, I think he got cut. He got cut from the football team.
I feel like he wasn't hurt because I feel like he was cut.
Yeah, he was cut. That's what it was. Yeah.
Because I just don't imagine him being injured, not being able to go to football, but then being able to do some wrestling.
Other people have been injured from football and gone on to pursue a career in professional wrestling. It's two different animals. I mean, it's definitely a very physical business, but just all the cutting involved with being on the athletic field, a lot of knee injuries. Not to say that there aren't in wrestling,
right?
He did get cut, and I feel like there was some kind of other injury involved there too. But I know for sure he did get cut, and then his kind of plan B was get involved with the WWF, follow in the footsteps of his father, his grandfather, and from that point he became one of the biggest and best entertainers in the whole world.
And he's no small guy either. He's a big dude as well.
But Triple H now, on the other hand, he is more in the same vein as myself. When he was little, I've watched his documentary about 80 times, like my bedtime story at night. His first match, he remembers specifically sitting in front of the TV, seeing Chief Jay Strongbow in his very first match. He's about 5 years old. And that's just like me when I saw my first match. And he said he was playing with a football. He was sitting on his dad's lap and he had a football. He's playing around with the football. He sees this match. He puts the football down. He just crawls in front of the TV and he's just fixated, and that's it. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to be a fireman or a football player or a baseball player. I want to be a pro wrestler, and that was the dream. He's a purist. And around 2000, I've heard many times he recounted the story of Vince pulling Triple H and The Rock in the office and saying, hey, you know, we need to branch out here. You guys are
I heard about that. And The Rock was very, I don't mean to stop you in the story, but my understanding was The Rock was very interested.
Yeah.
Triple H, not so much.
Yeah, Triple H like, well, what did I do? You know, I can't wrestle for you anymore? You know, so, yeah, I mean, Triple H, he's forged his own legacy on his own terms. So,
Sure.
Well,
he does what he loves.
He does what he loves.
And when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life.
Yeah,
you know?
and he was the guy, I mean, before he even, you know, was involved with Stephanie McMahon. He gets a bad rap about, you know, marrying into the business and stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah. You know you're going to if you're going to marry the daughter of the Vince McMahon.
Sure, yeah, and he's talked about that before, how he went to the Undertaker for advice on that, because he's like, Undertaker's like one of those guys, like the locker room leader, one of the most respected guys. He goes, what do I do, man?
He gives some good advice.
Yeah, and Undertaker says, you know who you are, you know what you can do, you know how talented you are, you know what you bring to the table, screw them, you know, and let them think what they want.
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely made the right choice. I would not have not dated Stephanie McMahon just because some people said something.
No.
I'm like, that's a, you know, pretty influential and powerful family to be a part of. So
yeah, no, I feel secure.
Yeah, I think he's good for a while. Like, but
math.
Yeah. So along with that, you know, we were talking about how wrestling is very demanding on the body, and we all know that, like, there's a lot of involved with the endocrine system as far as your hormones and everything like that can be damaged and so forth. What is your experience? And before I say anything like this, we preface it by saying that people that are kind of into fitness or athletics understand that this is something that happens in all athletic sports.
Right.
And how does performance enhancing supplements come into play with the not necessarily WWE, but any kind of wrestling aspect?
Well, I think that it used to be a lot worse than it is now. Just overall, I mean, of course, it still exists to some extent. It does in every sport. It probably always will, you know, to some varying degree. But especially back in the day, you look at the size of these guys in, you know, the 80s and the 90s, like your Ultimate Warrior and your Hogan. These dudes are just monsters. 300 pounds, single-digit body fat. I mean, you're not looking like that just, you know, going to the health club and drinking protein shake.
It's not anabolic chicken.
Yeah, you know, eat your vegetables, brother.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, and to be a star, there was a certain look that these guys were under pressure to attain, right? You know, fast forward to 2019, and you got a guy like Kevin Owens who wrestles in gym shorts or basketball shorts and a cut-off T-shirt. Doesn't even show his stomach off because you know he doesn't have a body at all. But he's a phenomenal. He's a phenomenal entertainer. He's great at his craft.
Sure.
But the point that I make in saying that is not to take a dig at Kevin Owens, but it's just to kind of illustrate the pressure to have that look, that like bodybuilder, all oiled up, permatan type look, is not at the forefront like it used to be. You still need to stand out. You still need to be different. You still need to have something that you don't just see walking down the street every day, right?
Yeah.
But it's not in the same vein. It doesn't just mean exclusively you've got to be a master.
Yeah, they don't need you to be Mr. Olympia.
Correct, exactly. Yeah. You don't have to be Phil Heath anymore.
That's, you know, and I think back in those days, a lot of those guys came from like bodybuilding backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct? They kind of like teetered on both type of avenues. Is that more or less?
Well, I think they were a lot more fascinated by the sport of bodybuilding. I think they loved bodybuilding. Like you got like guys like Lex Luger, Warrior. They all have, you know, bodybuilding backgrounds. Triple H was an amateur bodybuilder. He won like Mr. Teen New Hampshire.
Right.
And you know, he's talked about how he used bodybuilding. He loves it. He still does it, but he looked at that as like the means to the end to accomplish the ultimate dream job of being a pro wrestler. Like, I'm using bodybuilding because I know that I need this look.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, that you got to think that they were probably that pressure. They weren't just, using minor doses. I mean, they were probably pushing the envelope to get that look. So I think it overall is probably, healthier for nowadays than it would have been, back then. What about like things like, again, along with pain, injury, this happens, Brett Favre talked about it for a long time as far as his addiction to painkillers after his back injury. Do you see a lot of that happening because of the constant push of performing all the time?
Yeah. A lot of guys have just fallen apart, over the years because like I said, it's that mentality of, tape it up and go. And if you can't go, someone else, could be hot on your heels trying to take that spot.
Mm-hmm.
And the higher up the food chain you go, the more pressure there is to maintain that high level of performance, right? So if you're the top guy and your body's killing you, you don't want to take 6 months off right when you're at the peak of that run that you worked all those years to get to, because you've got the rest of the world nipping at your heels, ready to jump right in at that coveted spot that you worked so hard to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not healthy. And a lot of guys in the past I know have, use things like painkillers to kind of mask the issue.
The issue.
Yeah, you're not fixing it, you're just masking, and eventually, that you can only do that for so long.
Right. Well, all that painkillers that actually work for major injuries. And I'm not talking about ibuprofen here, but they're all opium based.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously we know, opium is a very addictive substance. So it's almost impossible not to become addicted to it once you start taking it on a regular basis. So,
right. Slippery slope.
Yeah, for sure. How do you fix that? Any way to fix that?
I think that's like a case by case thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have more addictive personalities than the other. I'm somebody personally, I've never done any of it, but I've also never gone through the rigorous, insane schedule year in, year out that these guys that get addicted to these things have gone through. So, I can't even really truly speak to what it must be like to torture yourself for that long. I can tell you just doing it a couple of times a week in your early 20s when you're healing just like
quickly,
that.
Like Wolverine.
Like Wolverine, I had all that going for me when I was doing it the most. I've chilled out with it substantially. Like, I haven't wrestled a match since March. But, back then when I was really, my most involved in it, doing it 2 to 4 times a week, I was beat up, man. I felt like I was 50. So,
Did you do anything for recovery during those times? Like, what would you do to recover from that?
Well,
and I'm not talking about like any kind of, like performance enhancing things. I'm saying, like, did you do ice baths, saunas, what do you do for recovery for those kind of situations?
Yeah, if I would have known a little bit more about recovery or been disciplined enough to implement the things I knew I needed to implement for my recovery, I probably wouldn't have felt as beat up as I did. Like, my idea of recovery after a match back then was, let's go to Steak and Shake and eat this chili cheese dog. Because why not?
Not the greatest for recovery.
Yeah, let's stay out with the boys all night. Because like wrestling, it's like a big fraternity. It's a close knit bond between you and the guys, and it's hard to turn down the chance to go out and connect and party and have a good time with the group after the show. I drink, but I've never been big into like any of like the recreational drugs.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing that
for sure,
stay away from all that stuff.
But to circle back to your original question, what can be done for recovery, or the question was what can be done to fix that.
To fix the issue with the that situation.
Again, I think it's a case by case thing. I think that that's something that an individual needs to sit down with themselves and take a look in the mirror and have a talk with themselves.
So you think the grind is not there's no way to adjust the grind or the business. It's the individual himself is going to have to make a decision on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a very it's an individual thing, like knowing when it's best for your own mental and physical health to you know, it's okay to say that I'm not okay, you know, and that's something WWE has you know, they have a wellness policy.
Right.
They've got they're a lot more conscious of these issues that their performers face than they were, you know, even 10 or 20 years ago. You know, you start to see, like, unfortunately, like the Chris Benoit incident.
So about that, like, what do you think of that?
Nobody, I mean, I hate to speculate on it because everybody that was in that house for that is no longer with us, so we can't really truly speak to what actually happened.
What did they find in his blood? I mean, obviously we know that there's like performance enhancing drugs, which is what they originally blamed. But honestly, there were some other things at play.
Yeah. I mean, it's dumb to blame it on steroids. You don't roid rage for 3 days straight. Right. You know, I mean, perhaps the initial what lit the fuse could have had something to do with some kind of aggressive, you know, behavior. Yeah. And maybe steroids were in some way correlated to it. Yeah. I mean, dude, if steroids really did that to you, every Mr. Olympia in the history of the world would be a convicted murderer. Well,
I think that was pretty debunked later. I think that's more of a media ploy. But they did say, if I'm correct, and again, you know, write me if I'm incorrect, but I feel like there was cocaine involved or some type of illicit drug that was not performance in his blood. Is that correct?
Possible. Probably some kind of painkiller. You'd have to Wikipedia that or Google that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Let's just not. We're not going to say that's 100%, but it feels like something else was at play.
It could have been. I will say one thing for sure that they found in his brain was, and I did a presentation on Chris Benoit in college for my anatomy class. It was CTE.
Yeah, CTE. It's a huge subject now, especially with, honestly, every sport, but you know, a lot of combat sports, and then sports where hits are being taken or given, which is, I mean, honestly, everything, even something like basketball, you're getting CTE at, you know.
Yeah. His brain, man, it did not look like a normal 40-something-year-old's brain should look.
Absolutely,
And Benoit was always really big on realism. You know, if you go back and watch his stuff, man, his signature move was the diving headbutt, which you know
can't be good.
Probably not the best.
Yeah, not the best for brain.
Health, right? Yeah. And there were many times growing up as a kid, I'd see him coming off the top and taking. You know, the guy would. He'd move and throw a chair up, and Benoit would hit head first with the chair. Yeah. You look at some of the chair shots he's taken over the years. And, you know, he'd want guys to lay those things in to make it look as real as possible. Right. And we're human beings, you know.
You can only take so much of that.
I've taken a few of those in my day, and you know, not too many, but I've taken quite a few, and you don't feel right for a few minutes afterwards. So imagine
that. Well, that's common play for older people that have gotten CTE and brain damage over years and years. I don't know if you know who Matt Hughes is, but he was involved with MMA for years. Obviously battered.
Yeah.
Now he's, you know, doing things like trying to hurt his wife and things of that nature. Talk right, can't walk right. So that a lot of that, you know, plays a factor. You know, that brain damage eventually as you get older plays more and more of a factor. When you're young, you might not see it. You recover better. When you're older, it starts really affecting you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So kind of we'll put that to bed, and kind of put the whole wrestling thing to bed. This kind of led you to interested in nutrition, training.
Fitness nutrition is something that I've just always been fascinated by, and I guess it really started by just, you know, experimenting with my own body. I was not like a naturally like shredded dude like I was when I was a kid. And I started getting in the gym like with you and whatnot. Like I found that it was pretty easy to grow my shoulders, my chest, my arms, my legs not so much because I'm tall, and it's hard to like put my finger on the one definitive change that I made to like just all of a sudden transform and, you know, grow abs overnight, right? Like, I just remember one day it was like a light bulb moment that I used to work for Sherwin-Williams, and I would drive the van every day and deliver paint, and, you know, I lived off a lot of fast food at the time. I was still in the gym, and I was still training regularly, but I just didn't have the discipline, I guess, at the time to meal prep and really fuel my body with the appropriate foods. So I would kind of give myself the crutch of, well, I'm going to eat fast food, but it's going to be the grilled chicken, so that'll be good for me. And, you know, good enough, right? So I remember, like, eating this, like, gyro thing from Arby's and thinking, like, how my face just feels, like, so puffy right now, right? Like, my eyeballs feel like they're, like, floating in my head from all of this sodium. And I remember, like, I looked up the macros because, like, I was calorie counting on my fast food diet, like, you know, and I just remember seeing the sodium content was like 2,000 milligrams for one sandwich. I had 2 of them, and that was just like, I bring that whole thing up because that was a light bulb moment for me. Like, oh, you know, probably I'm not going to get super lean, like eating 5 days worth of salt, right, in one meal. Yeah. So it was around that time that I really like started making a conscious effort to eat the right foods as much as I could, you know, and that does by no means, like, does that mean, like, depriving myself, like I would still eat the foods that I wanted to. I just put a big emphasis on cooking them myself and knowing my portions. I bought my little food scale. I measure things by the ounce, by the gram. I know how much of what is going into my body, and after a while, I kind of established, like, this is my maintenance level for calories. And
so is that what you do now? You continue with that?
Yeah, I still do it. You know, I still do it because it just I like doing it. You know, calorie counting and macro tracking and all that. It's not for everybody. You know, some people they really dislike doing it. I actually like doing it because I'm just like, I'm a nerd like that, and I like looking at what I'm putting in my body versus the results that I'm getting from it, right?
Yeah.
And
but you know, like, the problem I always end up having with calorie counting or counting anything is I tend to eat the same foods on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I end up 1 or 2 days counting those foods, and then I'll be like, well, I'm eating the same thing, so why am I counting it? And it ends up not working well for me. Do you run into that at all, or not really?
Yeah, I did it today. Yeah, I'm like, I know what I'm eating. I know that my standard kind of like maintenance level is about 3,000 calories, is about 300 carbohydrates, 200 grams of protein, and about 100 grams of fat. So that is, I'm 175 pounds, and that has been like my baseline weight and my baseline macronutrients for the past, I'd say the better part of the past 2 years now, right?
So you keep your carbs higher than your protein. Is there like a particular reason for that at all?
Well, I mean, I feel good off of that split, and carbohydrates, they're protein sparing, you know. Right. So if you're getting enough carbohydrate in, the protein is allowed to kind of actually do its job, right? So that kind of goes to my next point. Back in October of 2018, I did a men's physique competition.
Okay, yeah, I saw that picture as well on your Instagram. You look great.
Thank you, I appreciate it. That was my first endeavor into like a competitive bodybuilding type, you know, program, and it was really just like a bucket list thing. Like, when I first got
wanted to do it.
Yeah, I was like, I remember like 5 years ago, I was like, yeah, like I'm strong and I can like bench 3 plates and all that good stuff, but like I couldn't be like a bodybuilder on stage. I could never get that lean. And then I realized, you know, well, maybe I can get that lean, and I am that lean, and I'm not too far away from it. So it was just like an experiment. And for that point in time, I gradually decreased my calories from that 3,000 calorie baseline just modestly down to the lowest I ever got was about 2,700 a day. And I added
2,700 calories?
Yeah. So
that's not that much. I'm 300 lower than your main.
Yeah, but you look at it in the macro as opposed to the micro. It's only 300 calories a day. but there's 7 days in a week. So what's that? 2,100 calories?
Less.
21,000
A week
calories.
that you're
Yeah. So, if you're dieting for a certain time frame, if you're dieting 9 weeks per se, because that's about how long I dieted for the show.
Right.
I found out about it in July. The show was in October. I'm like, yeah, why not? Like I was already like around 10% body fat at the time, and I did not.
Well, 10% is really good. I mean, to maintain that as
Fantastic.
well. So yeah. You're already almost at there.
Show level, yeah. I think around that like 10 to anywhere between like 8 to 12 is an awesome range to like just kind of have your baseline at, because you're never, you're healthy, like your metabolic health is at a good point there. You have very visible abs, and you're never more than just a few weeks off from being able to be in peak condition.
Do you train abs?
Yeah, I train abs.
Train abs?
I don't, I'm not crazy about like a ton of flexion work.
Yeah, I hear from some individuals who are competing in bodybuilding and things of that nature that they don't train abs as much as people think they would. Mostly like the lower the body fat goes, the more visible your abs.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can never. The number one way to strengthen the abdominal muscles, and I'm sure you would know this, is stabilizing the spine with heavy compound movements like your squat and your deadlift. Performing moves like that are going to do a lot more for you than laying on the freaking ground and doing some.
It's amazing to me how many training exercises you see people do on Instagram, and it all looks like either a gimmick or they make it appear that from that exercise is how you get the results. Well, I mean, we kind of all know that the basic, simple compound movements is what gets you that, that look,
For sure. I didn't emphasize abs by any stretch of the imagination when I was in my dieting phase, right, for that show. What I did do was the few calories that I did subtract, I subtracted a little bit from the carbohydrate, and I upped the protein just a little bit because of the 3 macros, the protein, the carb, and the fat. The protein is the most thermogenic of the 3. It requires the most calories to digest protein as opposed to the other 2, right? So if you're eating 100 calories worth of protein, it might take 30 calories just to digest that, right? It takes more energy. People talk about like getting the meat sweats after they eat like a big meal, like a big fat steak. It's because it's providing that thermogenic effect. So knowing that and knowing that theory, I just kind of put it to test with my diet for the show. So I upped the protein a little bit more. I think I went to like 230 grams a day and cut the carbs down to about 250 or so at their lowest, and kept the fat around 100 and 120. And for me, for my body, I'm not saying this would work for anybody else, but for me, I saw myself get, week by week, I would lose on average like between half a pound to 1 pound a week until on the last week I peaked at, I think my lowest weight was 169 pounds. I'd started at 176 or so, and I went from about 9.5% body fat to 6.5 at my lowest.
So you dropped almost 3% body fat in 9 pounds, essentially, right? Was it 9 pounds?
No, not even.
Not even
about
9. 7 pounds.
Yeah.
And people would think, 7 pounds is not that much, but I mean, it makes a difference. 7 pounds of body fat makes a huge difference.
When you're already lean.
Yeah, especially when obviously we're not talking about somebody who's 300 pounds and full of body fat,
I've worked privately with a few clients that are, they start off and they're maybe 100 pounds overweight, and they can't believe how fast it's all falling off in the first month. They're down 30, 40, 50 pounds, right? Because they've got so much to lose, so much water retention going on, just cleaning things up, drinking enough water, not living off of sodas, and getting, proper hydration by itself will do wonders.
Eliminate a lot of that weight. So how do you feel, and you can answer this pretty quickly, but you mentioned sodas. How do you feel about sodas? Or even, now we all know regular sodas are full of sugar. What about diet? Do you recommend that for anybody?
Well, I'll tell you what I do personally. I drink 1 diet soda per day. I mean,
same here. I do the same thing, but I just want to know your opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I know I know all of the studies or the people that claim that they've seen these studies that the aspartame causes cancer. And,
show me the bodies.
Show me the bodies.
Show me the bodies. Where are they?
What I can show you is my 93-year-old grandmother who has had a fridge full of frescas for the past 30 years of my life, and she's still kicking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not to say that, like, it's the best thing in the world for you.
Right.
Like,
it's not better than water, but it's not going to kill you.
And that leads me to another point. Like, you see where people talk about, I drink Diet Coke and I have cancer, and it's Diet Coke's fault that I have cancer. And okay, well, how many Diet Cokes a day do you drink? 7. How much water a day do you drink? Well, I don't drink water, but it's the Diet Coke's fault.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
a common thing to to kind of blame that one product or one aspect of it like on your issue, and then you do nothing to help your issue, but it's but you blame that one product.
Yeah, no, it's all in moderation, man. The last thing I ate before I came over here to talk to you was a piece of apple pie. Like you don't have to neglect yourself of sweets and things that you enjoy. You just can't. Your diet, breakfast, lunch, and dinner can't just be garbage.
Right.
Set the foundation, and you can kind of get to where you want to be, establish your baseline, figure out what you're working with, and then you can kind of do what you want.
So you mentioned something that I was wanting to get into. You said about training private clients. So do you do that now? Do you will you take on clients?
Yeah, I've got a few clients that I'm working with currently. I don't have a full-blown business model available to the public at this point, but for the past couple of years now, I've been working with various people, personal training, online nutrition coaching, online personal training.
So if I'm a person that's severely overweight, like how do you get me in shape? If I'm coming to you, I want just get me in shape. How do you start this process?
Very slowly.
Okay.
Very slowly. I think when you throw the kitchen sink at somebody right straight out of the chute, and they're Bill from accounting, right? They're not an athlete. They don't have a sports background. They're not really super highly motivated to get these results. They're coming to you because their doctor told them, your blood pressure is crazy high, your cholesterol is out of control, your A1C looks terrible, you need to get into shape, right? Mm-hmm. So they're already looking at this like it's a chore, right? So when they come to you and you throw the kitchen sink at them, and you've got them doing like the Rocky IV training montage, like out in the snow, like
pulling sleds.
Yeah, and you're like doing lunges in the snow with a log on your back and stuff. You're gonna burn them out really fast. Like the first thing that I would have somebody do, and the first thing I've had many people do, that'll come to me and say, I'm overweight, I need to fix it, help me, what can I do? Number one thing, okay, wake up, get a water, drink 16 ounces of water. Walk out of your door, set your timer, walk down the street for 5 minutes. 5 minutes are up, turn around, walk back home, and then start your day. Do everything different, don't change anything. If you eat McDonald's every day for lunch, keep doing it for now. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. We're going to instill this habit that every day you're going to wake up, no matter what, you're going to drink that water, you're going to go out, you're going to go for your morning walk, and after a day or two, set your clock for 6 minutes. Walk 6 minutes, turn around. You just did a 12-minute walk.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're instilling like a mental outlook or habits before you're putting, before you're throwing more at them.
Yeah, exactly. One thing at a time. People, some people might respond really well to that, but in my experience, I found that a lot of people do not respond incredibly well to being told, okay, well, you used to eat 4 bowls of honeycomb for breakfast, and then lunch would be 5 cheeseburgers, and dinner would be pizza, but we're going to change all that today. Mm. And now you're going to eat, just broccoli and asparagus and grilled
Too much at once.
Yeah. Too much at once. Why don't we instead do because you're in this for the long haul, right? You want to be around for 80 to 100 years at least, right? You want to live a good, long, healthy life. So don't approach it like it's a sprint. Approach it
like it's a marathon.
Life. Right, like it's a marathon. So let's get you in that habit of hydrating first thing in the morning. Let's take a walk. Let's get the blood flowing. Let's get you feeling good. And then after a couple weeks of that, let's just change the breakfast. You know, you used to eat like 10 bowls of cereal. Okay, well, how about we do, 2 poached eggs and some wheat toast, maybe with some avocado.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a reasonable thing to do. And do you ever get people to come to you and just want like ridiculous things? Like you come in and 30% body fat, and you're like, hey, I gotta go to the beach in 2 weeks. What can you do for me?
Well, the most ridiculous thing that I think I ever heard, and I'm not going to name any names, of course. And,
of course, yeah.
The guy was
off air.
Yeah. He's a really nice guy. He had the best of intentions, but he came to me, and he was about 5'4" and about 170 pounds and probably like 25% body fat or so.
Thick.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a thick boy.
He was a big boy, but he wasn't like, it wasn't the right kind of thing.
No, yeah, I that's exactly what I'm pointing at.
But there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we're all made differently, and all we can ever ask for is to maximize our genetic potential, right?
Sure.
Like whatever you've been given, whatever cards you've been dealt.
He's never going to be The Rock. He's just going to be the best he can be.
That's funny that you say that because.
Oh, okay. Did I touch something there?
Yeah. So I'm asking him like, all right, well, so tell me what your goals are, because I can't take you where you want to go if you don't tell me. Right. So he says, well, I want to be a wrestler, and I'm about to start training, and I want to have my first match in a month. And I'm like, okay, well, if you've never trained, first of all, if you've never trained, it takes a little more than a month to be equipped to do that.
Had to burst his bubble, didn't you?
Right, yeah. But, I by the way, I'm no professional wrestling trainer, never claimed to be one.
Right.
I have the utmost respect for professional wrestling, and, LT Fox, a phenomenal trainer. You go find him if you want to learn how to take
wrestle,
a bump. Yeah. I never would have claimed that I'm fit to do that, but he came to me more for the look aspect of it, right?
Looking like a wrestler.
He wanted to look the part. So I said, so give me an example of like your physique goal. Like, give me somebody that you look at and you say, I'm comparable to that guy.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe like an Eddie Guerrero or something.
Right.
Like a short, stocky, but in great shape. And he goes, well, my birthday's coming up in like 2 months. I wrestle in a month. By the time I get my birthday and I'm about 4 or 5 matches in, I think I'd like to look like Brock Lesnar.
Oh, wow.
Like,
that's when I asked you if any kind of ridiculous things that people said, but this is almost to the point of delusional. I mean, actually it's delusional. There's no...
Yeah, so you need to grow a foot.
Right.
And gain about 120 pounds.
That's unreal. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, even if you can put the number of weight that Brock Lesnar weighs, you will never look like him. You will look worse.
No, if Franco Columbo looked at Arnold Schwarzenegger and said, I want to look like that, he never would have looked the way
he would look
looks.
worse. Yeah, he would look worse. He put on that weight and he looked terrible.
Two different skeletons.
Right.
My training partner that I lift with all the time, Tyler Hardy, he's involved in a lot of these fitness nutrition ventures with me, kind of like my business partner.
Gotcha.
You could say.
Yeah.
He's about 5'6", 5'7". He's 5'7", and he's built like a tank. Right. I mean, he's the same weight as I am, but he's all muscle.
Right.
And I could never look like that because I don't have the same skeleton, and he can never look like me. Because he's not 6'1", 6'2".
Right.
So in order for me to match his size, pound for pound, I would need to be 200 pounds easily, right?
Right.
So, these are things that you have to consider when you're trying to picture like your ideal physique. What's your skeleton look like? How big are your bones?
And maintenance. I mean, you put yourself to that weight. What kind of
lifestyle is it going to take to maintain you at that level? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's significant, you know, even if you make it to that weight.
Yeah, Triple H even talked about that. He doesn't have like a huge skeleton, and he had a very high metabolism, right?
Yeah.
So it was really hard for him to have that like really round look of the delts, you know,
Right.
to maintain that massive size.
Right.
And he would just talk about how he used to eat like a madman to keep the size that he had. I think at his heaviest he was about 265, 270.
Yeah, which that's a good amount of weight.
That's massive.
Yeah.
And he's my height, you know. Or, He's about 6'2". He's maybe a little taller than me, like maybe 6'3"-ish somewhere.
The taller you are, the harder it is to put that weight on.
It is, and that was
fill out.
That was a pitfall that I fell into early in the wrestling career, right? I saw these guys that I idolized, emulated, wanted to be like, and I thought, Triple H is 250. I need to get up to around that, right? Yeah. So I'm eating, and just worried about size and what the scale says. And I got super strong, and I did get very muscular, but I didn't look good.
You didn't look
good. Yeah, you know, it's like that meme where the guy's like showing his arms and his chest, and the girl's like, "Well, show me your abs," and it like shows like the guy from the Matrix.
Right.
You know? Yeah, that was me. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. I think sometimes people get caught up. It's kind of like how girls get caught up with the scale, and they want to be less weight, but they don't necessarily look better if they're, you know, at those less weights.
Right.
I think it's the same thing for men that are trying to get, you know, more muscular. It's like they want to see the scale go up, I'm getting more weight on me, and they're equating that to more muscle. But then when they look in the mirror, you know, they don't look better.
All of a sudden you got a 38-inch waist.
Right.
And you're like, what happened?
Yeah, what happened? I gained all this muscle, but well, you gained a lot of other stuff with it, you know.
Yeah, and that was something that I did pack on a lot of muscle during those years, but I packed on a lot of body fat too. And it was when I realized that was kind of around the time that I had that epitome with the gyro and the Arby's and
all the sodium that
yeah.
made you
and I'm like, you know,
go into the kidney shock failure.
Right, yeah, exactly. So at that point, I knew two things. One, I needed to cut, but two, I did not want to just become a smaller version of myself.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be the skinny fat guy.
Right, exactly. You don't want to go like shrink but still keep the same structure.
Right. And that takes patience, it takes dedication, it takes consistency, it takes living that lifestyle, you know. So you see a lot of guys that'll be doing just these crazy workouts and they'll be shedding fat, but they'll be starving themselves and they won't be prioritizing the big bread and butter lifts that are responsible for packing on and maintaining that muscle when you're in like a caloric deficit. So they'll be shrinking, they'll be losing body fat, and they'll be losing muscle too.
As well. Yeah.
I'd rather be the guy in a tight t-shirt with, you know, big arms and a gut than the guy that's just scrawny, the beer guy. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So with that being said, you wanted to talk a little bit about this routine that you just got into. You said, do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so my 30th birthday is coming up, July 31st, and I really wanted to kind of test myself in a few different ways that were, you know, beyond just like the bench, squat, deadlift, you know. So, and that's another thing that I've been really big on over the last few years is like relative strength to your size, right? You know, people in the gym get caught up when they see guys coming in, throwing 405 on the bench and repping it out, and they get discouraged. Like, I want to be like that, you know, myself included. You know, the guy, one of my mentors in the gym was, his name was Larry. He was built like Michael Clark Duncan, just this huge man.
Yeah.
And he would bang out 405 for sets of 5 and 6 and 7, and I've never touched that weight on a bench press, right? So I would always want to be at that level of strength, but when you hit a certain training age and just a certain age in general in life, you hit a maturity level where you step back and you say, well, how much does this guy weigh? You know, he's 250 pounds. I'm 175 pounds. I'm interested at this point about looking good, being healthy, and being relatively as strong as I can be pound for pound, right, without causing too much damage to my skeleton. So I found these functional strength standards from a doctor named Dr. John Rusin online. And one of the standards that I saw was, well, I saw three. I saw vertical pull, vertical push, and loaded carry. So for an advanced athlete, an advanced elite level athlete, he considers optimal strength for a loaded carry to be able to do like a farmer's walk with 200% of your body weight for 30 seconds, which is no small task.
No.
So if I'm 175, I'm picking up 350
Right.
with a trap bar and
Yeah,
I'm walking.
that's tough.
Overhead press, a goal for mine is to do like a strict military standing overhead barbell press with my body weight. Chin up, 1 rep max in the chin up. I want to get it equal to my 1 rep max in the bench press. So on my birthday, I've taken these 4 goals, or these 3 goals, and I've kind of constructed a 6-week training split designed to meet and or exceed these goals. So I'm on week 2 right now, tracking my progress and my lifts as I go, and on the weekend of my birthday, I'll be testing these strength standards to see how far I can
Are you going to be posting those up as you go along? Okay.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I might want to try to get into some of that as well. So, Zach, we did an hour and a half, so we've been talking for an hour and a half. So yeah, we can wrap it up. So you're taking clients, you're doing this strength training routine. I'm sure some people would love to like either do it with you or keep up on your progress. If someone wants to hire you or just follow you and get motivation from you, how would they contact you, or where would they go for that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Zack Harris, ZackHarris 01. Zack Harris 01 is where you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Zack Harris, ZACK. Stay tuned. Keep watching, because we've got a lot of different new things coming down the pipe very shortly.
All right, Zach. Well, I appreciate you coming in. It was great catching up. And, we'll have to get together again sometime, maybe do another episode later on.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Take care.